And what's going on, Los Angeles, Bruin Nation, LAFB fam? How we doing? Your dynamic duo, the Madman and Thriller, back together again for all of your UCLA sports needs. And we took, 5-6 days. We let the portal kind of close, had to go live to sort of recap portal, as well as an epic win last night for the basketball program.
Yeah.
As always, what a fun evening we're going to have here, Thriller, talking about our beloved Bruins. But first and foremost, my brother, how we doing? How's the last few days been? How are you enjoying life? We need a Will Decker update.
Bro, it has been great, man. I mean, just watching all the UCLA traction and just, the positive vibes that we've been talking about on so many of these episodes, it's carried over to our basketball program, which I think is super cool to kind of see what's playing out in real time there. Could not be cooler. We had some Bruins football guys at the game last night, which I'm sure we'll talk about, but life is good, man. Southern California, what could be better than that? We got some great NFC and AFC championship games coming up with some Bruins littered in some of these games. Our guy Sharps is out, unfortunately, but Quentin Lake on the Rams, friend of the pod, may I add, we'll be cheering for our guy Q Lake and seeing what he can do in a Rams uni on Sunday.
No, absolutely, Thriller. Let's hope we got some beloved Bruins here, in the Super Bowl. Look, regardless of who wins between the Rams and the Seahawks, we're going to have some Bruins, right? I mean, we talk about Q Lake. We also got Jake Bobo on the other side, in addition to Sharps, right, with Seattle. We got some guys even on the AFC side. So hopefully this is the year that a Bruin brings home yet another Super Bowl ring, Thriller. Wouldn't that be something? But, Thriller, we've been talking so much over the last 2.5 weeks. We said it was going to be a madness bonanza type of situation from January 2nd to January 16th. We sort of caught our breath after that. It's been a football frenzy, if you will. And we're going to be talking all about where we netted out from an offensive line perspective.
Wow.
But maybe we start, Thriller, with the other sport. And how crazy is that to even say at a place like UCLA, because of just how successful things have been with football recruiting? We're kind of treating basketball as the other sport. But holy moly, Thriller, the Bruins off the mat, off the schneid, off the ropes on John Wooden, Coach Wooden bobblehead night, home against number 4 ranked Purdue, the preseason number 1 in the country, the preseason favorite in the Big Ten, coming in at 17-1 against a UCLA team that seemed like it was reeling. Purdue jumps up 27-15. You're thinking, oh my God, here we go again. Business as usual. This team can't get a stop. And then there was just an inspired play over the course of that first half to tie that game at halftime. And then it was a dogfight back and forth, Thriller. We fast forward 67-61 Purdue. Yeah. The Bruins finish the last minute and 32 seconds on an 8-0 run. How the tables turn. UCLA under the Cronin era it's been symptomatic of blowing leads late in games, blowing leads in the second half. Here the Bruins come back off the deck, survive the three-point attempt by Purdue at the buzzer there. Bilodeau on an absolutely massive pick and pop for the game winner, 69-67. The Bruins have their biggest win of the season. And all I have to say, Thriller, before handing it over to you, will the real Donovan Dent please stand up? This is the Donovan Dent that we have been waiting for. 23 points, 13 assists. This is the $3 million man, getting Bilodeau, getting Perry involved offensively. Daly was running those passing lanes like a madman going in transition. This is the team we thought we were going to get at the start of the year. Hopefully, this is the start of something absolutely magical, Thriller. And you alluded to it. How cool was it to see Wayne Knight and company rush the floor after that win as well to support the beloved Bruins? A magical night at Pauley. The Bruins are off the deck and in potential to be able to make a massive run here over the course of conference season. Thriller, your thoughts on the Bruins' biggest win of 2026?
It is a season-saving win for UCLA. You know, when you look at the stance they were at, every kind of big-time opponent they had, whether it was Arizona, whether it was some of the in-conference opponents here early, it just felt like they couldn't get off the mat for these big games. And then, you know, you look at the schedule, they had to travel out to Ohio State and Iowa and Wisconsin. And Cronin's grumbling in the press conference post-game saying the schedule's all messed up. And there's a lot of reason as to why that is. But seeing this team rally to what we think they can be, and you're totally right. If Donovan Dent plays like that, man, 23 points, 13 assists. I mean, the first half, it's 32-30. It's right before the buzzer. I got shades of Kemba Walker at the Garden with how smooth he was with the basketball in his hands. Step back, hits the shot at the buzzer to kind of tie it going into half. And then just some of the plays, I think it was 56-58, big point in the game. He kind of hits a tough contested shot on that left elbow, the free throw line, to tie it at 58. It's like he was built for the moment. It's like, where's this guy been all season long? You know, he was even doing on the defensive side of things, had a couple big blocks. The one play in the first half is he rejected a shot at the rim. Bilodeau got it, threw like an overhead pass to Daly, who was surging, and he dunked the basketball. I think it was at that point, it was 27-24 after that happened. And you can just feel the momentum surging with UCLA. And there's just so many good storylines, like Bilodeau getting that look at the end of the game. It's not an accident because Dent was playing that well. So you look at the two guys collapsing, the guards, they went for Dent, leaving Bilodeau open for that three-point shot on the wing. He hits it nothing but net. And just Trent Perry, man, like the jump this kid has made. We had high expectations as a McDonald's All-American. You know, he's averaging about 16 a game at Madman in his last 5, shooting about 48% from 3 over those contests, even at a 30-piece against Penn State earlier this week. Really, really encouraging stuff from UCLA. And just the matter that they pulled it out in. Like, it feels like UCLA is the team that blows these games in all of these scenarios. You know, like 67-61, you know, UCLA, you're tight at that point. But it was the opposite way, as you said, man. 8-0 run to finish the game. Bilodeau, the hero, gets a big-time shot. Just, I mean, such a capable bucket for this team, and he's been that ever since he's put on a UCLA jersey. What a fun win. I mean, still not without my gripes. You know, we got out-rebounded again. Xavier Booker played great against the rim. I'm liking the rim protector he is. He's still got to get more rebounds for me. And 0 bench points. It was all, you know, our 69 points came from all of our starters in this game, but, you know, not too much to complain about when you beat the number 2 team in the entire country. So big, big win. I'm stoked for UCLA basketball. That's the type of win that can make you get back into the tournament. So we got some big games coming up. I think 5 of our next 6 are at home. You know, number 11, Illinois, as it stands right now, coming to Pauley. We need to pack the house for that game. Stack these big-time wins. And, hey, man, it's starting to feel like 2021 if you can kind of get that momentum rolling here pretty quickly. So big, big stuff from the Bruins, man. And last thing I'll leave it with, Sahir West, I saw he was wearing a Michael Jordan t-shirt with Jordan sneakers out there. And it just, you know, this kid was like, you know, maybe like at 2006 he was born or something like that, 2007. He wasn't around for the greatness of Jordan, but it shows that his parents raised him the right way. So very pumped on that for our guys Sahir West. That was very, very cool to see.
Thriller, I love the tweet you had last night. You said, you know, an understanding of the history. He was raised well. Indeed, Thriller. You and I both were very clear on where we stand on the Jordan-LeBron debate, you know, so that was really well done. Thriller, so well said there. I also think the emergence of Perry has been absolutely phenomenal. You know, him getting 30 the other night against Penn State, I think has sort of taken this offense in terms of variety to a different level as well. I mean, you know, we talk about adjusting for pace. You know, so much of that is the conversation in the NBA because, you know, you got guys averaging 33, 35, 36 some years. And you're like, well, you know, you got to adjust it for pace to where the game was in the 90s and the 2000s. You also, in a collegiate environment, have to sort of adjust it for the Cronin pace. For a Mick Cronin player, Thriller, to score 30 in a game, to me, that's like the equivalent of scoring 50 in a game. You know, I mean, in terms of, you know, when you talk about the pace of play offensively, historically with Cronin. So Perry coming through here I think really opens things up. And look, Thriller, like we talked about, what do you need in March to be very successful? You need very dynamic guard play, right? I mean, you made the historical reference there to Kemba Walker, that run that UConn had, over 10 years ago. And then UConn followed that up. That was 2011 with Kemba. And then UConn followed it up in 2014, if you remember, with Shabazz Napier, another great guard that really got going. And so when you got Dent and you got Perry, and then, oh, by the way, listen, Sky Clark was injured, and part of the reason there was 0 bench points was, a huge piece of the puzzle there, and Sky Clark wasn't suited up. So it kind of threw off the rotation. You've got 3 guards that can make a ton of noise. And to your point, Thriller, if Booker plays the way he needs to in terms of rim protection, Bilodeau's kind of your pick and pop and your post player, and Daly kind of runs havoc in those passing lanes, is active defensively, runs the floor the way he did. I thought, Thriller, really the turning point in that game in so many ways was that block that Dent had on Braden Smith, and then you kick it out to Daly for the dunk. The place went bananas, and you thought maybe, just maybe, this thing could absolutely happen. But Thriller, I want to sort of go back to Dent because this is so, central to what UCLA wants to do. 23 points, 13 assists. He was 10 for 18 from the floor. He just controlled every aspect of the game. And let's not forget, Thriller, that he was matched up with Braden Smith, arguably the nation's best point guard, came in number 1 in assists in all of college basketball, averaging 9.1 assists per game, a Wooden Award preseason selection. I mean, you're talking about an absolutely elite point guard, arguably the absolute best in the sport, and then thoroughly outplayed him to the point where you said, what is this guy doing on the court with Donovan Dent? I mean, so Donovan Dent's emergence, you mentioned it, his aggression to the rim, I think he's starting to understand his spots on the floor. I think he's really sort of focusing on that mid-range, and then he's being really aggressive, taking it to the basket. I think he's taken the three-point shot really out of the repertoire. If he's open, he'll take a 3, but he's not going to just sort of languish in the perimeter. I think he was much better in terms of dribbling with decisiveness last night. He sort of had a plan of where he wanted to go with the ball or what he wanted to do, as evidenced, to your point, on that last play, that pick and pop. Because he was so dangerous and because he was so decisive, Bilodeau had the space to be able to hit the shot. Thriller, if he plays like this, and that's a big ask, look, but if he plays 75, 80% of what he played last night against Purdue, this is a UCLA team, Thriller, that can make a ton of noise down the stretch. And to your point, 5 of the next 7 at home. You got a really winnable game now, home against Northwestern. You got another winnable game at Oregon. Can you get to 15-6? Can you get to 7-3 in the Big Ten? Can you build some momentum? And if you can get that second signature win, if you can beat Illinois at home and you got those 2 quad 1 victories, now you're really solidifying yourself for March, and you can sort of get on a run, and this thing could go any which way. We've seen it so many times in this sport. The madness is very real in March. So, Thriller, your thoughts on a season-defining win, potentially, I don't want to, overstate it, but quite possibly a career-defining win for Mick Cronin if we think about where he was prior to this game in terms of fan sentiment, in terms of fan patience, and in terms of just overall excitement about this program.
I think it's through the roof after that game. And it's, we made the reference in the past of being shocked back to life after that Penn State win that we had earlier this year. That's what it felt like, tonight, because it just felt lifeless at times. And I don't, maybe I'm a prisoner of the moment. What Donovan Dent did last night might be the most impressive performance a guard has had in any game in college basketball this year. And that's the type of player this guy is. Preseason All-American. We know about his $3 million NIL deal. If we get Dent playing to 90% of what we saw, like you were saying, this kid with what Bilodeau is doing, who's just been absolutely awesome. I've been all in on Bilodeau this year. He's been old reliable. You know what I mean? Just put him in the corner. He's going to make his threes. He's going to get the mid-range jumpers. He's so efficient. If you get that combo, that pick and pop, a college version of kind of like your Stockton Malone, I think the sky's the limit for what UCLA can do in the second half. And to your point, college basketball is all about momentum. And I referenced 2021 We were the last 4 out. We go to the Final Four that year and lose on a half-court buzzer beater. If you get the momentum going now, anything is possible. And we were so disappointed earlier in the year because we predicted this team to, might be an Elite Eight team. It might be a Final Four team if everything went well. You saw the seeds of that last night, and it's just so encouraging. There's so many positives to come out of this game because Braden Smith, like you said, that's about as good as a guard as you're going to go up against in college basketball. And Donovan Dent had him in hell on both sides of the floor. That was Braden Smith's worst shooting game. I know Smith did a really clutch 3 with under 3 minutes left in that ball game where it felt like Purdue seized momentum. But outside of that shot, he was in single digits up till that point. And Dent was just dominating, getting to any spot he wanted. He was so smooth, so confident. Keep that confident play. I think it's almost like baseball at times where he was in a slump, man. And if you kind of get that slump busting hit, you're going to go off like Ricky Henderson or Ichiro, given this guy's capability. So give my boy Donovan Dent the rock and let him cook because he is doing some big things for the Bruins, man.
No, Thriller, it's such a massive victory. And like we talked about, with Cronin, he's maddening. And we've sort of torn out our hair. We've just gone crazy with him this year. In terms of his demeanor at times, his lack of offensive imagination at times, all true things. And we're probably going to tear out our hair some more over the course of this season. But the recipe in 2021, the recipe in 2023, like we talked about, was being very, very active defensively and being able to have a closer offensively, right? When we think about Juzang and we think about Jaquez, and we think about what those two teams in particular kind of meant, it's the equivalent of run the football and play great defense, right? You need that workhorse running back, and you need to have a great defensive unit. Cronin, in so many ways, is like a football coach, coaching basketball. Sometimes it feels like, if this team can start taking the identity of Cronin defensively, and then offensively, if Dent is able to maintain this level of confidence, I'll say, just this level of confidence, that is the recipe for Cronin teams to go exceptionally deep in March. And that is the recipe for college teams in general to be able to go exceptionally deep in March. So it's one game. It was one game at home. It was a 2-point win. But my goodness, did that feel like more than one win? And, I love what the fans are saying right now of him kind of challenging his players, him challenging, kind of everything, between the schedule, between his own competence, between the fans.
What doesn't he challenge?
Who doesn't he challenge? I mean, and I'll be honest with you, sometimes that rubs this alumni base kind of the wrong way, in terms of like, hey, man, what are you doing? You're a college coach. Like, you got to take some ownership as well. You alluded to it earlier. But recall the last time that he challenged this team, they went and won 7 in a row. And so is that the recipe here for these guys to get on a run? If you can win, to your point, 5, 6 in a row, can you win 7 out of 8? Can you win 8 out of 10? Now you're sitting in a position where you are going to be a top 5, top 4 team in arguably the best conference in all of college basketball, and really in a position not just to get into the dance, but make a lot of noise in the dance. So, Thriller, I think you're re-inspired. I'm re-inspired. Our fan base is re-inspired, and we can't wait for the next one. This is what it should be, and I can't help but think about Wayne. When Wayne always says, look, that momentum even across sports can be very real. And, with football, just the success in the transfer portal, you mentioned it, the guys that were there last night to support the team, that just enthusiasm translates over. Now it's translated over into basketball. Let's not forget, women's basketball looks like an absolute juggernaut at number 3 in the country. This team has a legit shot to win the whole thing. And so everything is starting to play off of everything else. Baseball's ranked number 1 in the country, Thriller. We got some spring sports. I mean, it's amazing. So there's sort of a magic in the air here. I keep alluding to it. It's starting to remind me like the 90s again. It really starting to feel like the 90s again, and it's starting to carry over. And we're right at the birthplace, I think, of a magical era that we're going to enter in with UCLA sports. So huge win, Thriller. Anything you want to kind of close with in terms of basketball before we segue to the gridiron?
Yeah, I think big results are made from little moments. And we had a little moment last night that can lead to big results in the long run for UCLA basketball. And if Donovan Dent is if he's like, get on my back, I'm going to take us, and he plays like that, we can go as far as this man can see. So I'm really pumped on Dent. I mean, dude, this is the guy. Like, we all knew coming in this year, if Dent is right, everything will fall into place. And boy, was he right last night. He was awesome.
Boy, was he right last night. Well, speaking of guys that are right, Thriller, Donovan Dent is quite right. And a Mr. Bob Chesney. See, it doesn't seem to be getting it wrong very often. Yeah. We finally sort of close the bonanza, as we called it earlier in the transfer portal. 41 new transfers, Thriller, depending on the rating agency. Some had this team top 10 in the transfer portal rankings. Some had them sitting right at 11 in the transfer portal rankings. If you look at kind of average grade of player, it was at the very top with some of the most elite programs in the entire country. This was an absolute coup in terms of the portal, Thriller, and a home run indeed. And then when you sort of couple that with seeing Chesney and this staff visiting Mater Dei, visiting St. John's Bosco, visiting the Trinity League in Orange County. I mean, the blueprint is there that this is going to be all about high school recruiting as well in 2026 moving forward, and really getting into that pipeline of the preeminence of talent that we have in SoCal, and letting everyone know that UCLA football is back, and UCLA football is going to be a force not only in this region, not only in this state, but in the overall country. And so just the excitement is sort of through the roof, Thriller. I know we wanted to kind of kick this off as the first of many, many conversations we're going to have in the weeks and months to come about grading this transfer portal class. And I think it's only fitting that we start the conversation with the offensive line, and because so much of the conversation about credibility in the Big Ten is in the trenches, right? And about going inside out. And your assessment, Thriller, of this offensive line, I know you alluded to it. I won't steal your thunder. 10 new entries in, from the transfer portal. I counted 8 on the defensive line. If you recall, we kind of said 15 is that magic number that we're going to have to get from offensive and defensive line. We got 18, so we really hit it. I'd love to get your holistic overall take. For me personally, as I now zoom out, I love the depth that we have. And to me, it feels like this starting group of Jordan Davis, left tackle, we got him from South Alabama, Sun Belt all-conference performer, great experience, great size at 6'5", 305. You got Jordan Davis on that left tackle. You got Hall Schmidt on that right tackle. You got Brooks and Robel as your guards. You got Sam Yoon as your center. And then you got a ton of depth pieces. I sort of love that configuration, Thriller, in terms of this offensive line. And I think it's going to unleash Nico Iamaleava in a way that we just have not seen in the powder blue and gold. But Thriller, your thoughts on this offensive line going into 2026?
Yeah, it's a really just a strong output, man. Like when you think about like a 53-man roster is usually what a college football team is made of. We got 45 transfers coming in to school next year. Like it's unbelievable what they have done. And, I think there's a lot of great pieces that I really, really like with this team. And if I'm going to go with the strength of this class, the interior of the offensive line, like just the depth you have there, the different rotations you can have, I think it's like stacked, if I'm being honest. We're looking at production over potential, which my guy, Kurt Signetti, new nationally champion coach, by the way, likes to say when he goes to recruit people. And look at Madman's a national champion too. And it's high-level players that they're adding with lots of experience, like Riley Robel last year, man. We knew he was an all-conference selection, but when you look in the details of what this guy actually did, 297 snaps last year, 2 sacks allowed, and he led the best run offense in, like Sunbelt history, really, with what they were able to cook up there. You have Carter Sweezy, who's coming in that, was an all Sunbelt selection as well. He's not even going to really start if Eugene Brooks is healthy, but just to have a all conference selection guy maybe be a backup on this team. Like, think about that. Like, that is the type of depth you're dealing with here. I'm hooked, man. I think Derek Osman is a guy from Harvard. He was a tackle at Harvard, but 6'4", 305. That's more of a guard, kind of at a bigger, Big Ten institution. I think, look at his numbers, man. Like 17 starts, 1 sack allowed. Like, these are the type of high product players you're bringing into your system. And then, we got Sam Yoon coming back, who was the highest graded center in all of college football the week they played Penn State, which had probably the toughest defensive guys they had. He's going to be trying to hold down that center spot. You got Sean Na, who's kind of the X factor of the group. I'll be honest with you. He's battled injuries the last few years from Arizona State. But I think the thing that I found most fascinating about this type of guy, he started 7 games as a 18-year-old true freshman out of St. John's Bosco. And you want to talk about recruiting out of like high school pipelines. That's another Bosco Brave in a UCLA uniform. So you love having these types of guys around. Sean Na's been battling injuries since then. So like, I don't care who you are. If you're an 18-year-old starting that many games at the offensive line, when it usually takes a few years to kind of get up to speed, that's impressive as hell to me. So like, on the initial, when I'm looking at it, Eugene Brooks, who I think is a future NFL talent, like 6'4", 340, coming off of 11 starts. He's only going to get better. You got Robel, you got Yoon, you got, who I believe, Derek Osman coming back. You got Sean Na. Like, just like that, those are 5 guys for 3 positions, and you feel comfortable at all those spots. Like, I just think that's really, really strong. Like I said, you could have an all-conference guy in Sweezy, maybe not even cracking that group of 3 right there, which I think is special. So really pumped on that. The tackles, I was a little bit more concerned about when I looked at the fine print. Hall Schmidt, we were really excited about it. I think there still is good reason to be excited about Hall Schmidt. But he did lose his job in camp last year as the right tackle spot and then got hurt. So he couldn't really contribute last year. But even with Hall Schmidt, the 2024 year he was able to put together with Boise State, 379 pass opportunities, allowed 1 sack. Like, that's the type of guy you're bringing in, just the productivity. And I was nervous. Like, we really needed that left tackle. I think what made me a lot more confident is you get a guy like Jordan Davison, who you referenced at the top, 30-plus starts, man. Like, that's the type of veteran you need. And I know some people will be like, oh, this guy's from South Alabama. 30-plus starts at South Alabama, originally started at South Carolina in the SEC. So, like, this guy was good enough to get SEC offers out of high school. I just need a veteran in the room that has played a ton of football, that's going to keep my quarterback's jersey clean in these games. And Jordan Davis, I mean, like, literally at the belt. Like, it feels like we're not going to get any more transfers on the offensive line.
Right.
You bring this guy in, a 30-plus game starter, all-conference performer. That was, I mean, just Chesney just continues to shock me. They might not even be done, by the way. I mean, Tommy Kinsler, this offensive lineman from Miami, he said UCLA's reached out to him. He's 6'6", 340. Like, that's crazy. So I'm just floored, man. I think Mac Indestead, 9 starts the right tackle. I think that's going to be really fun to kind of watch him and Hall Schmidt kind of battle there.
Right.
The Eastern Michigan, they're both like the same size. It's crazy. We talked about them being literal Vikings out there on football fields. And then you got the 2 JUCO guys, Michael McDonald coming in and Zahir Young coming in from the Bay Area. Both like pretty big dudes. Michael McDonald, 6'6", 330, an LA kid, went to Fullerton College. I think that means a lot for someone coming from LA to play for UCLA. And then Zahir Young coming down from the Bay from Diablo Valley College. I mean, that's a guy that you saw his trajectory rise as a recruit, like Cal offered in the last week and Colorado offered in the last week. His recruitment was only going to get more intense, but he kind of called it off, said he wanted to go to UCLA and play for Bob Chesney and co. So, I think totally, in totality, if I was going to give a grade to this, I'm going to give it a B+. I think it's really strong. It was at a B, and then you add a guy like Davis coming in. B+ on paper, and I'm happy to reassess this grade during the season. But I think on paper, you've got a very solid starting unit that I think may not be flashy and may not have like the NFL draft picks of a Michigan, Ohio State, but they will be more than effective in doing their job as an offensive line unit.
No, Thriller, so well said there. So comprehensive. I love how you broke it all down. I mean, 10 guys, Thriller. I mean, this is, it's obviously they're different positions. It's not every position being the same, but you're essentially talking about recruiting via the transfer portal, a starting unit, and an entire second string in a 2-week period. I mean, think about that for a second when we talk about where we started from an offensive line perspective. And a couple things there, Thriller, to your point. Number one, I don't think they're done, because one of the big, we got to remember the transfer portal closed on January 16th, meaning no one else can enter into the transfer portal, but there's still a ton of guys in the portal and a ton of opportunities for schools to recruit the remaining guys in the portal. So I could see a world here, Thriller, where we might add a piece. We might add a piece on the offensive line. We might add a piece on the defensive line and color in some touches to this incredible class. Thriller, I'm right there with you. I thought your point on the difference between the interior and the tackles was spot on, because if I was to sort of grade it, I had it at a B. You had it at a B+, so we're thinking about it right in the same way. I just need to be able to see it a little bit more with the tackles. I think you brought up a great point with Hall Schmidt. I need to see him recover from injury and be back to that 2024 pace. Yeah. And Jordan Davis, we've seen it a little bit before with some of these prospects, to go from G5 to P4, sometimes that's a little bit more of a jump than we realize. Now, the fact that, to your point, he was at South Carolina, was recruited there, gives me a lot of confidence. But that's the only reason I have it as a B and not a B+. I just want to be able to see that. But if you think about the interior of this line, Thriller, to your point, it's an A. I mean, when you think about Robel, Brooks, Yoon, Naa, Sweezy, as sort of a 5-man rotation on the interior, that is going to be incredible for UCLA, particularly in this James Madison offense, where you're going to kind of go zone read on the inside and then quarterback keeper on the outside. So, having that guard and center play be excellent is going to be absolutely critical to opening up, this offense that we're so excited about seeing. And Thriller, I think taking a step back, look, a B+ offensive line from where this offensive line was these last 2 seasons. I mean, Thriller, let's be honest. This offensive line the last 2 seasons, D-, maybe an outright F. I mean, like that's, D-, F. I mean, that's sort of where we're hovering. So to be able to say that we're going, let's call it a D-, to a B+, you have elevated this unit by 2.5 grades. 2.5 full grades is where this offensive line is. With an offensive line like this and a 5-star quarterback and the offensive weaponry that you have in terms of the skill position players, this is an offense that's going to be able to score in the Big Ten. And on that side of the ball, Thriller, this has all the makings for an 8-4, potentially a 9-3 team. And I think that's what we're so fired up about, because this offensive line is not only going to cross the chasm of being credible, but it's going to cross the chasm of being credible to being really above average in the Big Ten. And now we're going to sort of see Nico with more than just 0.6 of a second to sort of throw the ball or run. He's going to actually have a chance to really unleash his talents. And that's what's got us so excited.
Yeah, and you think this offensive line is going to buy Nico probably an extra second in the pocket. Do you know how long an extra second in the pocket is for football standards? It allows whole entire plays to open up before our eyes, and I'm just so excited to see it. And, I got a question for you. If you were most excited for a lineman returning to this team next year, who is that lineman for you?
Ooh, I'll tell you, Thriller. You talked about Brooks, and I think that he was absolutely critical. But I'll tell you, having a great center and having continuity at center is so critical. To me, Sam Yoon now coming back with, a band of brothers here in this offensive line. I'm very excited to see how Sam Yoon runs this offensive line, because the center is the captain of that unit. How he sort of sets the expectation and the discipline of that unit as the captain of that group. I'm very, very excited to see Sam Yoon produce not just on the field, but from a locker room standpoint, leadership standpoint. So I got my eye on Yoon. We've sort of sensed that there's a big jump coming, and I think this is the year that jump takes place.
I love it, man. Yeah, I think for me, Brooks is obviously there. I love having Yoon back. We've talked to his parents before, if you remember, so we got a lot of love for Sam and the Yoon family. But I think of the new guys coming back. I just think Robel, there's something to that kid. Man. Like, second team all Sun Belt. He was dominant last year. Like, PFF was giving him outstanding grades at the guard spot. I'm really excited to see how he adapts to Big Ten football. And, you know, he was holding his own against Oregon. Like, that's the thing that I think people forget about is, like, Oregon has one of the best defensive lines you can buy in terms of college football. And for him to play, like, pretty well in those games, like, that is as encouraging as you're getting, because that's like as good as a talent as you're going to see on a football field. So Robel is that guy for me. The tackle questions there. I know I gave it a B+, but in terms of the effort, Bob Chesney, it's an A+. I mean,
A++.
It's valedictorian grades, you know, that you're given to Bob Chesney for what he's doing. Summa cum laude, Mr. Chesney. You know what I mean? So he is balling out, man. I'm so thrilled. And to do this in like 2.5 weeks, he's never lived on the West Coast. He's finding his bearings. He's moving his family out here. On top of it, landing 45 different transfers. It is just out of this world, man. And like, you know, seeing some of those players rush the court, like we were talking about earlier for UCLA basketball. I mean, how cool is that? They're all in on UCLA sports, man.
All in on UCLA sports, Thriller. And I just, again, like we talked about, I just love the fraternity there, you know, between basketball and football. And what I'd also love to see is football players, men's basketball players go out and support the women's team, because that team, you know, is probably the best team of all right now. And that's a team that is just looking absolutely dominant. And let's bring home title 126 with the women's team and Coach Corey Close. I thought it was really interesting. You know, one of the things that BCS champ said earlier, hey, if JMU doesn't get in the playoff, do we see this type of transfer portal haul? It's an interesting question because, you know, I think the credibility of JMU making the playoff is one of the reasons why the players were so desirable, but also why Chesney was such a desirable candidate, right? And so obviously JMU making the playoff has a lot to do with the type of player UCLA was able to get. And I'll tell you, the combination of JMU making the playoff and Indiana winning the national championship, because that was JMU's last coach, sort of legitimizes Chesney in another way as well, without, you know, something outside of his control. So I think all of those factors contributed in a very significant way. And think about this. I mean, JMU making the playoff, they were in the first round. We talked so much about, hey, this might narrow the window of preparation for Chesney to be able to go get those 40-plus players, but we were still rooting for JMU regardless. He was able to multitask in such a beautiful way. And this is a case study. And I think the rest of college football is looking at this. Think about this. And we talked about it, Thriller, in the last few weeks. All of the contentious handoffs that have taken place, not just this year with Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss and LSU, which is probably at the top of the list, but even in years past,
maybe
guys
all
jumping
time
before, you know, guys jumping before the playoff, guys jumping, you know, in tough situations. I mean, I remember Brian Kelly leaving Cincinnati for Notre Dame. I mean, you know, the old Lincoln Riley leaving, you know, after the Bedlam game for USC. I mean, you can sort of count it every year. It seems like there's a case or two where there's some ill will. This was done so well. And the fact that Chesney finished it out with JMU, he did it so well. I think that also had a lot to do with setting this up for success, because I think players also saw the respect level that both programs had for each other. And it's really, really proud to see this. And Thriller, it just feels the juice is coming, Thriller. The juice is coming. I haven't felt like this since I was 12, 13, 14 years old. I'm telling you, I'm with my heart, with my soul, with my guts. This is feeling like the 90s again. I remember vividly what the 90s felt like growing up in Los Angeles, West Los Angeles, growing up a Bruin fan. This has got that. This has those ingredients. This has that magic to it. And I think we're going to see it really, really soon.
I think so too. And it's just, yeah, it's different air out there right now for what we're experiencing. And, guys, keep letting us know what you want to see. It's going to be an off season. We have a lot of fun things to talk about, but we're also trying to fill the schedule with fun things that you guys would be interested in hearing. We got some fun guests we're reaching out to. We got some awesome people we're going to bring on the pod. Maybe we bring some of you guys on the pod. Like that.
Oh,
would be very fun,
yeah.
man.
Absolutely.
But, I'm hearing D-line. Somebody wanted to do wide receiver room when it comes to that type of stuff. But, we are just so grateful to get to do this with this UCLA community, and just wanted to, say thank you for everyone tuning in. I know it's a Wednesday night in the middle of the week, and we got 157 people, 58 people in here watching, tuning in to us, and just having a good time being Bruins. As I always say, man, come one, come all. Let's talk some ball, man. This is a lot of fun.
Come one, come all. Let's talk some ball. And we're going to hit them all. We're going to hit all the position groups. We'll see what you want, whether it's D-line very next or wide receiver very next. We're going to hit them all. It's just whatever you guys want next. And Thriller, man, what a great conversation. And I just want to echo the appreciation, the gratitude we have to Bruin Nation of spending your evening with us, and many more to come here. Before we get out of here, Thriller, of course, we gotta highlight our friends on the Sleeper app, #1 sports app on the market today. Download that Sleeper app and tell them the guys from the LAFB network sent you. Use that promo code UCLA LAFB and get $100 off your match bonus. 100 becomes 200. You can do real-time stats, real-time chat. You can do all kinds of different things with over-unders, lines, all interesting combinations of things. Download the #1 sports app on the market today, that Sleeper app. I'm sure you're seeing it on billboards everywhere, wherever you may be. There's actually a huge Sleeper app, billboard, Thriller, next to Westwood, next to, the Wasserman building of all places.
Yeah,
you got that Sleeper app over there. So download that #1 ranked Sleeper app, a sports app, and tell them the guys from the LAFB network sent you. Thriller, another great one in the books. There is no greater joy for me than talking with you, spending time with you, and spending time with our community to talk about our beloved Bruins. And we've said it for years. We said it when we were up, when we were down, when we were upside down, when we were right side up, when we didn't know which way was what. And now you have even more ammo, folks. Be loud, be proud, be passionate, Bruins. And until next time, folks, 4's up forever, baby.
Like and subscribe, y'all. Like and subscribe.